Hi, welcome back to the farm. My name's Roz, also known as Passion Flower, and you'll find me here each week talking about my farming and creative life. Last week, I hinted about getting some friends for Hurley, and we now have some additional sheep to be a flock so that Hurley is not by himself. I finished the fencing and decided that I didn't need a skirt on the gate once it had been put properly so that there was no weird gap or angles near the opening. So that's a good thing. And I also added a fourth side to the shelter. So there's just a smaller opening and there's some clear plastic sort of that roofing stuff around the rest of it so that it is quite a protected small shelter for the sheep. And I'm going to add a gate to that as well so I can actually shut them in if I need to, so that they're not out in the paddock at night. So as Hurley was starting to get bigger and he was able to be out in the paddock, I was still worried about him being out there by himself. And it was really clear that he needed some sheep time. Like I wasn't able to play with him the way that a sheep can, and also to teach him about grazing and drinking water and all of that kind of stuff that comes instinctually as an animal being part of a flock. So I'd been looking on Gumtree to try and find some bottle fed lambs that would be appropriate to sort of bring in that would blend in with Hurley and would be friendly around people so that I was able to handle them and that were maybe a little bit older than him, but still lambs. So I found two that were being sold together. They are Romney and one is about 8 weeks and the other is 12 weeks, and they're both fully weaned. That means no bottle feeding, which is great. And Hurley is close to not needing bottle feeding anymore too. Very quickly, he's gone from those 4 feeds, middle of the night, and all that kind of thing. And now I'm just doing a morning and an afternoon feed. And I can hear him bleating right now. He saw me walk into the shed and he can probably hear my voice. And he's also expecting that I'm going to make up a bottle and go out there and sit with him for a little while. So when I'm done with this, that's where I'll be going. Um, but he can wait a little while because every time I come past, he should not be expecting to get a feed. So last week I said that I wasn't sure. I didn't want to confirm if I was going to be able to get these two sheep or not because I was still working out the details with the seller. But by Friday night, it had all been confirmed and they were delivered on Saturday morning. So I'm really happy to have been able to welcome Evie and Vito to the farm. Vito's a little bit smaller. He's about 8 weeks old. Huge personality, very cute little man. And Evie is about 12 weeks old. She's much more tentative and has taken a little bit longer to get to trust me. But I've been spending a lot of time out in the paddock, just sitting either on a chair or on the grass and just watching them graze and letting them come up to me and sniff me, and it's paying off. Um, Evie now comes up and says hello. She doesn't flinch when I try and touch her, and um, they are starting to really see me as their person, I think. It's going to take a bit longer to really bond, and we probably will never have the same bond that Hurley and I do, seeing that I bottle fed him from very, very young. But as long as we're all really friendly and I'm able to put a harness around them and I'm able to get them to move from place to place, then I think we'll be pretty good. So I am still putting them all into the green shed at night and then getting them up in the morning and putting them out in the paddock where they graze all day and then putting them away again at night. So then in the morning, I'm doing Hurley's first bottle, and then in the afternoon, late afternoon, I will do a second bottle and sit out with them for a while. And then later on in the evening, after we've had dinner, I go and I put the sheep to bed. Now, the first few times of putting the three of them to bed was a huge challenge. Um, Hurley is fine on the harness and he just walks because he's known that routine for a little while and he knows all of that space and he knows that he's going to get to go back outside again. Whereas the others were so difficult. It was easy enough to get them out of the shed to the paddock, not super easy, but easier, because getting them on to a lead in a small space was was fairly easy. There was sort of nowhere for them to go, so I was able to get the leads on them to get them out, and then kind of coercing, dragging, walking ahead, getting Hurley to kind of walk ahead. I was able to get them in, but to get them back out again was quite difficult the first few nights. I couldn't get the lead onto Evie. She just wouldn't come to me anywhere near me. In fact, anytime I tried to go to her, she would just run. And I didn't want to stress her out too much. So I wasn't going to chase her around the paddock trying to get a lead on her. So I had to get both Deb and Adam's help to kind of herd her into a corner so that we could um, get the lead on her. The first few nights, Adam actually picked her up and carried her in because she would just flop down like you cut her legs off and she wouldn't walk anymore. And Vito did that a couple of times as well, although we were sort of able to give him a bit of a push up the bum and he would start walking again. And him and Hurley together, we were able to get them to walk pretty well. But Evie, she was a struggle. But the last couple of nights, what I've done after I've spending all of that time in the paddock and her sort of coming up to me a little bit is I got some of the lamb pellets and I put them in a little container and I just sat down on the grass with that container beside me and just waited for them to come to me. And they did. And I think there must be something pretty magical in those lamb pellets because they love them. So it's an easy sort of bribe to get them to come up. But then once they were close, it was super easy to just get the harnesses onto each of them. They didn't want to go anywhere. They weren't troubled by doing that. And then I was able to just really quietly lead them all into the shed to spend the night. And I think they're actually appreciating being in there. They haven't caused any trouble. And I think that it's helping them to bond as a three. And I will keep putting them in the green shed for a few more weeks. We're still getting some really cold, icy mornings. So, just to keep them warmer at night for a little while. And also, they're still quite little. And Hurley is only, what, 4.5, 5 weeks now. So, he's got a little bit more growing to do before I feel confident having him out in the paddock by himself. Well, not by himself, having him out in the paddock just in general. And Vito's still quite little as well. So I think that Evie would be okay, but the other two are still quite small. And until they're used to the paddock as a space and they're used to the shelter and they're used to each other, I think that to keep them in that small space to bond at night and then bring them out during the day is a really good balance. And then once I have them out all the time in the paddock, I think for a little while I will shut them into the shelter at night just to teach them that that is their safe place to go to sleep. And then I will come in the morning and open it up for them. So again, just having me as part of their morning and afternoon routine for a little while, just so that they still feel that I'm a part of what's going on. So at the moment in that paddock, the only shade is from the shelter. So actually inside the shelter, but also the shade that it casts, which is plenty in terms of keeping them sheltered and getting out of the sun. But I am looking to also plant some low growing sort of tree, shrub kind of things so that over time there are a couple of different options in the paddock as well to provide some shade that is sort of away from the shelter. There are 2 baths in there that we are using for water. Um, Potentially, I'm gonna move them closer to the shed garden so that it's easier to fill them with the hose. The hose that I have here does uh, reach all the way to the current baths, and I've already had to sort of top them up. We had a few quite warm days, so I had to top them up. And that's going to be easy enough to do, but we might move them closer just so that it's even easier. No craft or anything else to report on this week. I have been very sheep focused and very busy getting the 2 new sheep acclimatized to being here on the farm and making sure that Hurley is growing big and strong and getting to be part of a flock. Well, that's it for another week. Thanks for spending some time with me. If you're enjoying these videos, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. And I look forward to seeing you next week on the farm. Bye.